A comedian's joke is one thing. An entire industry turning the same person into a punchline at the exact same time? That's something else entirely. And that is the controversy sitting at the center of this story. Meghan Markle didn't just face criticism. She became the target of a relentless wave of mockery that spread from late-night television to stand-up stages, from animated satire to internet memes, from America to Britain. The shocking part isn't that one comedian took a shot, it's that dozens of them did, different countries, different political views, different audiences, yet somehow they all landed on the same name, Meghan Markle. And once that avalanche started rolling, it became almost impossible to stop. What made this situation so explosive was how quickly public perception appeared to shift. Meghan entered the royal family as an outsider who many believed was bringing a fresh and modern image into an ancient institution. For a moment, she seemed untouchable. The media attention was massive. The celebrity connections were endless. The interviews were everywhere. But then something strange started happening. The more she spoke, the more critics seemed to emerge. The more she explained herself, the more comedians found material. The more public appearances arrived, the more jokes followed. And before long, the comedy world smelled blood in the water. The first major crack came when comedians started questioning the narrative that had dominated headlines for years. One of the loudest voices was Chris Rock. He didn't simply tell jokes, he challenged assumptions. He questioned whether some of the controversies being presented as shocking should have been shocking at all. His performance wasn't subtle, it wasn't cautious, it was direct. And that directness changed everything. Suddenly, subjects that many entertainers had previously avoided became open territory. The floodgates didn't just crack open, they burst. Then came the award shows, the late-night monologues, the endless punchlines. Joe Coy stepped onto one of entertainment's biggest stages and delivered jokes that instantly spread across social media. Jimmy Kimmel joined in. Jimmy Fallon joined in. Stephen Colbert joined in. Different styles, different approaches, yet the target remained the same. Every new joke added another layer to the growing perception that Meghan and Harry had become comedy's favorite subjects. And the remarkable part was how often those jokes focused on the same themes: public interviews, Netflix projects, memoirs, lifestyle brands. The repetition itself became impossible to ignore. The Netflix era only intensified things. What was supposed to strengthen their public image instead provided endless material for critics. Comedians seized on the contradictions they believed they were seeing. Some mocked the complaints, others mocked the publicity, others mocked the constant media appearances. It became a cycle feeding itself. Every new project generated fresh headlines generated fresh jokes, and fresh jokes generated even more attention. The machine kept running. Then there was Prince Harry's memoir. That book became an entertainment event all by itself. Late-night hosts couldn't resist it. The personal stories, the revelations, the intimate details, everything was transformed into comedy material. Critics argued that the memoir revealed too much. Supporters argued it revealed necessary truths. But comedians weren't interested in picking sides. They were interested in finding punchlines, and they found plenty. What made the situation even more fascinating was that not every comedian started as a critic. Trevor, for example, initially appeared far more sympathetic. He directed much of his humor toward the monarchy itself, rather than Meghan. Yet even that position seemed to evolve over time. The story kept changing, new interviews emerged, new business ventures appeared, new public moments created new questions, and gradually, even some voices that had once seemed supportive began finding humor in the contradictions they believed they were witnessing. The criticism wasn't limited to America either. Across Britain, comedians approached the situation with a different energy. There was more frustration, more personal investment, more anger beneath the jokes. For many British commentators, this wasn't merely celebrity gossip. It involved national institutions, taxpayer debates, royal traditions, and public expectations. The result was comedy that often felt sharper and more emotionally charged. But perhaps the most astonishing development wasn't coming from comedians at all. It was coming from satire, puppet shows, animated series, internet sketches, viral videos, entire episodes built around Harry and Meghan. Once satire enters the conversation, something changes. The story stops being a headline and starts becoming a cultural symbol. And that appears to be exactly what happened. The couple transformed from public figures into recurring characters in an ongoing comedy narrative. The deeper mystery is why this happened on such a massive scale. Why did comedians who disagree about almost everything suddenly agree about this? Why did entertainers from different countries arrive at similar conclusions? Was it purely because Meghan and Harry were famous? Was it because they generated endless material? Or was there something larger happening beneath the surface? Something about public perception, celebrity culture, and audience fatigue that turned them into the perfect comedy target? The answers depend entirely on who you ask. Supporters argue the couple became victims of an unfair media machine that never gave them a chance. Critics argue they created many of their own problems through constant public exposure. Comedians, meanwhile, seem content to keep turning the entire saga into material. And that might be the most revealing detail of all. Because in entertainment, jokes usually fade, trends usually disappear, public fascination usually moves somewhere else. Yet years later, the punchlines keep coming, the sketches keep appearing, the debates keep raging, and somehow, Meghan Markle remains right at the center of it all. The question now isn't whether the comedy storm happened. Everyone can see that it did. The real question is whether it's finally slowing down, or whether the next headline is already preparing to restart the entire cycle all over again. And that is where the story takes an even stranger turn, because the jokes eventually stopped being about individual interviews or specific controversies. The jokes became about the entire brand, the entire image, the entire public identity that Meghan and Harry had spent years building. Critics weren't just mocking isolated moments anymore, they were mocking patterns. And once people begin spotting patterns, every new appearance gets examined through a completely different lens. One of the biggest examples came when critics focused on what they saw as a contradiction between privacy and publicity. Again and again, comedians returned to the same observation. The couple frequently spoke about wanting a quieter life, yet they continued appearing in documentaries, interviews, podcasts, magazine features, books, and streaming projects. Whether that criticism was fair or unfair almost stopped mattering. The perception itself became the joke, and comedy is often driven more by perception than reality. Once audiences started associating Harry and Meghan with that contradiction, comedians had an endless source of material. Then came the lifestyle projects, the cooking content, the lifestyle branding, the carefully curated images designed to present a warm and relatable public persona. Instead of improving public sentiment, many comedians treated those efforts as fresh ammunition. Small moments that probably seemed harmless suddenly exploded across social media. A simple kitchen clip, a lifestyle tip, a casual demonstration, everything became meme material. Critics argued that ordinary activities were being presented as profound discoveries. Supporters saw harmless entertainment. But once the internet decides something is funny, controlling the narrative becomes nearly impossible. The situation reached another level when major satirical productions entered the conversation. Satire works differently from stand-up comedy. It doesn't just tell jokes, it creates exaggerated versions of public figures and then lets those caricatures take on lives of their own. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't simply Meghan anymore. She became a character. Harry became a character. Their relationship became a storyline. Their interviews became recurring plot devices. Their public image became a running gag that audiences instantly recognized. That transformation is powerful because once somebody becomes a recurring comedy character, every future event gets filtered through that version of them. Perhaps the most damaging aspect wasn't any single joke, it was accumulation. One comedian can be dismissed, 2 comedians can be ignored, 3 comedians can be criticized. But when late-night hosts, stand-up performers, animated series, satirical shows, internet creators, podcast hosts, and social media accounts all begin echoing similar themes, the repetition itself becomes the story. Every new joke reinforces the previous one. Every meme strengthens existing perceptions. Every parody expands the narrative further. It creates a feedback loop that grows larger than the original controversy ever was. What makes this entire saga fascinating is that it reveals something bigger than Meghan Markle herself. It reveals how modern celebrity culture works. Public figures no longer compete only against critics. They compete against comedians, meme creators, satirists, influencers, viral clips, and endless online commentary. A single public appearance can be transformed into thousands of interpretations within hours. Every facial expression becomes a screenshot. Every quote becomes a meme. Every contradiction becomes a punchline. And once that process begins, even the most carefully managed public relations strategy can struggle to keep up. Meanwhile, Harry remained trapped inside the same storm. Many comedians portrayed him as someone who had walked away from one life only to find himself stuck in another. Fair or not, that became part of the comedy narrative. The prince, who once represented one of the world's most famous institutions, was now frequently appearing as the side character in jokes about interviews, memoirs, streaming deals, and celebrity culture. The symbolism was impossible for comedians to resist. But here's the question nobody seems able to answer. If all these comedians were truly wrong, why did so many audiences laugh? And if all these comedians were right, why does the debate remain so fiercely divided? Years later, people still argue about Meghan Markle with the same intensity. Some see a woman unfairly targeted by relentless scrutiny. Others see someone whose own decisions created the backlash. Both sides remain convinced they're correct. And perhaps that's why the story refuses to die. Because beneath every joke, every meme, every parody, every viral clip, and every headline sits a deeper mystery. How did one person manage to become the center of such an extraordinary cultural reaction? How did comedians across multiple countries working independently arrive at such similar conclusions? Was it coincidence? Was it timing? Or was it something about the public image itself that made the comedy inevitable? Whatever the answer may be, one fact remains impossible to ignore. The roasts never really stopped, the punchlines never completely disappeared, and somewhere out there, waiting for the next interview, the next project, the next public appearance, comedy's spotlight is still pointed in exactly the same direction. The story may have changed forms over the years, but the fascination remains. And judging by everything we've seen so far, this saga is far from over.